I, James Harrison, sat in my downtown apartment, watching the cascade of messages flood our family group chat. Thumbs up emojis and heart reactions poured in from every relative. The presumption was staggering. Not one of them had bothered to ask me first. Perfect spot for a summer wedding. The lake views will be gorgeous. We can save so much money. Finally, that place will be put to good use. The empty lake house they were so eagerly claiming was just one small piece of my carefully hidden empire. 5 years ago, while my family thought I was barely staying afloat with my struggling real estate business, I had been methodically building Harrison Luxury Properties into a $4.2 billion corporation. James, you're being so quiet, my mother texted. This is such a wonderful opportunity for Amanda. I took a deep breath and typed, when were you planning this wedding? July 15th. Only 4 months away. We need to start preparing now. Amanda replied instantly. The property needs some work. I wrote carefully. I'll need to check the schedule. My phone immediately rang. It was my Aunt Mary, Amanda's mother. James, darling, don't be difficult, she said the moment I answered. The house just sits there empty most of the year. Amanda's wedding is the perfect opportunity to put it to good use. We're thinking about 200 guests. I glanced at the architectural plans on my desk, detailed drawings for the Harrison Lake Resort and Spa, a $300 million project set to break ground next month. The empty lake house and surrounding 50 acres would soon become one of the most exclusive luxury destinations in the state. That's quite a lot of people, Aunt Mary, I said neutrally. The property isn't really set up for. Oh, we'll handle everything, she interrupted. Your cousin Michael's event company will manage it all. We just need the space. And honestly, James, it's the least you can do for family. We've all been so worried about you rattling around in that big house all alone, barely making ends meet. I suppressed a laugh. The family's perception of my financial status couldn't have been further from the truth. While they pitied my modest lifestyle and struggling business, I had been quietly amassing a real estate portfolio that included half the commercial properties in downtown, 3 luxury hotel chains, and development projects in 6 major cities. We're coming up this weekend to start measuring for the tent and planning the layout, Aunt Mary continued. Your mother mentioned you had some work done recently. Did you finally fix that awful deck? There have been some changes, I said carefully. I should probably mention, perfect. We'll be there Saturday morning. Amanda's bringing her wedding planner and Michael's bringing his team. Oh, and your mother mentioned the guest house could use some updating. We'll need that for the bridal party to get ready. Before I could respond, she hung up. Moments later, the group chat exploded with messages about color schemes and catering options. I leaned back in my chair and looked out my office window at the city skyline. From this vantage point on the 50th floor of Harrison Tower, I could see several of my properties glinting in the afternoon sun. The family had no idea this building, the most prestigious business address in the city, belonged to me. They thought I worked here as a mid-level property manager, barely holding on to my job. My phone buzzed with a message from Marcus, my head of development. Demolition crew confirmed for Saturday 8 a.m. Press release about Harrison Lake Resort goes live Friday at 4 p.m. All permits secured. Investors ready for groundbreaking ceremony next month. I smiled and typed back. Perfect timing. My family's arriving Saturday morning to plan my cousin's wedding at the property. Make sure the crew is there early. Marcus replied instantly. Want me to delay the press release until they arrive? No, I wrote. Let it break Friday. They'll be too excited about their plans to check the news. I had spent 5 years carefully cultivating my image as the family's struggling black sheep. After graduating with my MBA, I turned down a prestigious middle management position at my uncle's company to strike out on my own. The family had been simultaneously pitying and smug ever since, watching my apparently fumbling attempts to build a business. What they didn't know was that I had started buying up distressed properties during the market crash, renovating them with innovative sustainable designs, and turning them into highly profitable luxury developments. Each success was carefully hidden behind layers of holding companies and LLCs. While they thought I was barely affording the upkeep on the Lakehouse, I had been buying up all the surrounding properties to create a 500-acre luxury resort complex. My phone buzzed again, a message from my sister Emma. James, don't you dare mess this up for Amanda. I know the Lakehouse is your only real asset, but the whole family is counting on this. Maybe if you had listened to Uncle Robert and taken that job offer, you'd have more than one property by now. I had to admire Emma's ability to combine concern, condescension, and criticism in a single text. She had no idea that I owned the building where her law firm rented space, or that her exclusive country club membership came from a property I had acquired last year. Just trying to make sure everything is properly prepared, I replied diplomatically. The truth was, I had never intended to reveal my success to the family this dramatically. I had planned a careful, controlled disclosure after the resort's opening next year, but their presumptuous commandeering of my property had forced my hand. My phone rang again, the development team's daily update call. As I listened to reports about our various projects, I pulled up the security camera feeds from the Lakehouse property. Construction equipment was already being positioned discreetly in the surrounding woods, ready for Saturday's groundbreaking. After the call, I opened my personal safe and removed a thick folder labeled Harrison Lake Resort. Inside were the full architectural plans, environmental impact studies, and most importantly, the documentation showing my ownership of every property within 5 miles of the lake, including the charming cottage where my aunt and uncle spent their summers. The family's sense of entitlement to my property wasn't surprising. They had always treated my decisions with dismissive concern, certain that their way was best. When I bought the Lakehouse 5 years ago, my first major purchase, they had called it a foolish investment. That old thing will drain your savings with maintenance costs. Uncle Robert had declared at Easter dinner, "You should sell it to us for what you paid. We'll add it to the family trust." What they didn't know was that I had already established my own family trust, one that now controlled billions in assets. While they worried about my financial stability, I had been quietly building an empire that would revolutionize luxury real estate development in the region. My phone buzzed with another group chat message from Amanda. "James, the wedding planner needs the exact dimensions of the lawn for the tent. Can you measure it today? Also, we're thinking of arriving Friday night instead of Saturday morning. The house is still furnished, right?" I looked at the demolition schedule again. The crew would begin clearing the property at dawn on Saturday. The timing would be perfect. "Sorry, can't measure today." In meetings, I replied, "And Friday night won't work. There's some maintenance happening. Saturday morning is better." Maintenance, the house better not be a mess for my wedding. "Mom, can you talk to him? This is getting ridiculous." I muted the chat and turned to my computer, pulling up the press release scheduled for Friday afternoon. Harrison Luxury Properties announces $300 million Lake Resort Development revolutionary sustainable luxury complex to transform regional tourism. The renderings showed a stunning integrated resort complex, with the original Lakehouse carefully preserved as the centerpiece of a world-class hospitality destination. The property's historic character would be maintained, but enhanced with every modern luxury amenity. My phone buzzed again, this time with a private message from my mother. "James, sweetheart, I know you're probably feeling sensitive about the Lakehouse. It's your first real investment, and you've worked so hard to keep it. But this wedding could be good for you too. Amanda's fiancé has connections in real estate development. Maybe he could help you finally get your business off the ground." I had to bite back a laugh. Amanda's fiancé worked for a small development company that had tried to bid against me, unsuccessfully on several major projects. He had no idea that the impressive deals he bragged about at family dinners were tiny compared to my company's portfolio. The rest of the afternoon passed in a blur of project meetings and investment calls. By the time I left the office, the sun was setting behind Harrison Tower, casting long shadows across the city I had helped reshape. I drove home to my modest apartment, actually the entire top floor of one of my luxury buildings, and spent the evening reviewing the final details for Saturday's revelation. The demolition crew would arrive at 7 a.m., positioning their equipment prominently. The press would arrive at 9 a.m. for the groundbreaking ceremony. And my family, they would arrive at 10 a.m., wedding planner and measuring tapes in hand, ready to claim my empty lake house for their own use. I poured myself a glass of whiskey and smiled, picturing their faces when they realized the truth. The property they thought was my only asset was actually the centerpiece of a billion-dollar development. The cousin they had pitied for years was about to be revealed as one of the most successful developers in the state. But first, I had to maintain the illusion for just a few more days. I picked up my phone and typed in the family chat, looking forward to Saturday. Just remember the property needs some work, so don't get too excited. The responses were immediate and predictable. Don't worry, we'll fix it up. Michael's team can handle anything. It just needs a woman's touch. Little did they know, but Saturday would change everything. The empty Lakehouse was about to become the talk of the state, and the family's perception of their struggling relative was about to be dramatically revised. I closed my laptop and walked to the window, looking out at the city lights. 5 years of careful planning and hidden success were about to be revealed in one spectacular moment. I couldn't wait for Saturday morning. Saturday morning dawned clear and bright. I arrived at the Lakehouse at 6:30 a.m., watching as the demolition crews positioned their equipment exactly as planned. Construction vehicles lined the main drive, and workers in Harrison Luxury Properties uniforms were setting up the press area. My phone hadn't stopped buzzing since dawn. On our way, so excited. Amanda bringing the wedding planner and her whole team. Aunt Mary, don't worry, we'll make that old house shine. Mom, at 8:45 a.m., Marcus pulled up in his company SUV. Press is staging down the road, he reported. Investors are in place. Your family, GPS shows them about 20 minutes out, I said, checking my phone tracker. Perfect timing. I changed into my custom-tailored suit, a far cry from the shabby business casual wear my family was used to seeing me in. The local news vans were starting to arrive, and the property was buzzing with activity. At 9:55 a.m., I saw a convoy of cars turning onto the lake road. I recognized my aunt's SUV, leading the way, followed by several other family vehicles. Right on schedule. James, Amanda's voice carried across the property as she jumped out of her car. What's with all these trucks? They need to move, the wedding planner needs to. Her voice trailed off as she took in the scene. Construction crews, news vans, a podium set up on the lawn, and me standing in a perfectly tailored suit, looking nothing like the struggling cousin they knew. What is all this? Aunt Mary stumbled out of her car, clutching her wedding planning binder. The rest of the family emerged from their vehicles. My parents, Emma, Uncle Robert, Cousin Michael with his event planning team, and various other relatives who had come to help plan the wedding. James Harrison, a reporter, approached with a microphone. We're ready to begin the press conference whenever you are, sir. Press conference, my mother's voice was faint. James, what's going on? I stepped up to the podium just as the first news cameras went live. The family huddled together on the lawn, their faces a mix of confusion and dawning realization. Good morning and welcome to the groundbreaking ceremony for the Harrison Lake Resort and Spa, I began, my voice carrying clearly across the property. 5 years ago, I began acquiring properties around this lake, with a vision of creating the most exclusive luxury destination in the state. I could see the shock rippling through my family as reporters scribbled notes and cameras flashed. This historic lake house, which has been in my possession for 5 years, will be preserved as the centerpiece of a $300 million sustainable luxury development. Harrison Luxury Properties is proud to announce. Harrison Luxury Properties, Emma interrupted, her voice shrill. But that's the company that just bought our law firm's building. I smiled. Yes, along with approximately 60% of the premium commercial real estate in downtown. Now if you'll excuse me, I continued the press conference outlining the project details while my family stood frozen in disbelief. The reporters asked questions about my other properties, my company's rapid growth, and my innovative development strategies. Finally, as the press conference wound down, Aunt Mary found her voice. But Amanda's wedding, we had plans. I'm afraid the property won't be available for a wedding, I said calmly. Demolition of the surrounding structures begins today. However, I nodded to Marcus, who stepped forward with a folder. As a wedding gift to Amanda, Harrison Luxury Properties would be happy to offer our newest venue, the Grand Plaza at Harrison Tower. It includes our rooftop garden, ballroom and luxury suite accommodations for all guests. Fully compensated, of course. Amanda's wedding planner nearly fainted at the mention of the Grand Plaza. the most exclusive and expensive wedding venue in the city. But how? My mother stepped forward, tears in her eyes. All these years you thought I was struggling. I finished for her. You thought the Lakehouse was my only asset. You thought I needed your help and connection. You were wrong. Uncle Robert, who had been unusually quiet, suddenly spoke up. The Harrison Group, the company that outbid us on the Riverside development last year. That was you. All 8 times you tried to bid against me. Yes, I smiled. Though you might be interested to know that your company's building lease is up for renewal soon. We should discuss terms. The family stood in stunned silence as workers began moving equipment into position. The lake house, which they had planned to commandeer for their own use, was about to become part of something much bigger than they had imagined. Now, I said, checking my watch, I have a meeting with our international investors. Marcus will show you the plans for the new resort, and our events team can help Amanda relocate her wedding to a more suitable venue. Unless, of course, you'd prefer to wait 2 years for this location to be available. 2 years, Amanda squeaked. Yes, we're fully booked through 2027. The Harrison Lake Resort and Spa is already the most sought-after destination in the region. I straightened my tie. Now, if you'll excuse me, as I walked toward my waiting car, I heard my mother's voice. James, wait. I turned back. She was standing there, tears streaming down her face, but now they seemed to be tears of pride, rather than shock. All these years, she whispered, you let us think. Why didn't you tell us? I looked at my family, the people who had dismissed my dreams, pitied my choices, and finally tried to claim my property as their own. Because, I said quietly, you never asked. You were too busy telling me what I was doing wrong to see what I was doing right. With that, I stepped into my car, leaving my family to process the revelation that their struggling relative was actually one of the most successful developers in the state. As we drove away, Marcus glanced in the rearview mirror. They look shell-shocked. I smiled. Wait until they realize I own their summer cottages too. The week following the Lakehouse revelation was exactly as chaotic as I'd expected. My phone was flooded with messages from family members, ranging from apologetic to opportunistic. Emma was first. James, I had no idea you were the James Harrison. Why didn't you tell me you owned our building? We could have negotiated a better lease rate. I smirked at her message while signing off on the law firm's new lease agreement with a 15% increase. Uncle Robert tried a different approach. My boy, I always knew you had potential. Perhaps we should discuss a merger of our companies. Your cousin Michael would make an excellent VP of operations. I ignored that one entirely while reviewing the documentation for my recent acquisition of his company's largest competitor. But it was Aunt Mary's message that truly captured the family's shifting dynamic. James, darling, about Amanda's wedding. The Grand Plaza is just too generous. But since you mentioned it's available, the wedding planner says there's a 2-year waiting list for that venue. Perhaps you could pull some strings? Family first, after all. I was in my office at Harrison Tower when my mother arrived unannounced. My secretary, who had strict instructions about family visits, buzzed me. Mrs. Harrison is here. She seems emotional. Send her in, I sighed, minimizing the screens showing my latest acquisition plans. Mom entered looking distinctly out of place in the sleek executive suite. Her eyes darted around, taking in the panoramic city views, the elegant modernist decor, and finally settling on me, her supposedly struggling son, sitting behind a desk worth more than her car. All this time, she began, her voice wavering. We thought you were barely getting by. We worried about you, James. Did you? I kept my voice neutral. Or did you pity me? There's a difference. She sank into one of the leather chairs facing my desk. We just wanted what was best for you. When you turned down Uncle Robert's offer, his offer of a middle management position where I'd report to Michael, I interrupted. The same Michael who just tried to claim my lake house for his event company. We didn't know, she whispered. All these properties, this company, how did you keep it secret? I leaned back in my chair. It wasn't hard, Mom. None of you ever asked about my work. You were too busy telling me what I should be doing to notice what I was actually doing. A knock at the door interrupted us. Marcus entered with a tablet. Sorry to interrupt, but the Singapore investors are online for the resort preview. Put them through to the conference room, I said. I'll be there in 5. Mom watched this exchange with wide eyes. Singapore investors. The Harrison Lake Resort caught international attention. I explained, we're expanding the concept globally. And the Lakehouse, Amanda's wedding, is being handled by my events team. They'll provide the Grand Plaza at a family discount, though I suggest she hurries. We just got another celebrity booking inquiry. Mom stood, smoothing her skirt nervously. Your father, he'd like to have dinner. To talk. I'm flying to Tokyo tomorrow, I said, checking my schedule. Paris next week for the hotel chain acquisition. Maybe the week after? The look of shock on her face almost made me smile. The son they thought couldn't manage a single property was now casually discussing international business trips. But Sunday dinners, you always said you were too busy with property maintenance. I was, just not the kind of maintenance you imagined. Another knock. Marcus again. Singapore's waiting, sir. I have to go, Mom. I stood straightening my jacket. Tell Amanda my team will contact her about the wedding, and let Dad know I'll have my secretary schedule dinner. After she left, Marcus raised an eyebrow. Tough conversation, easier than the one I'm about to have with Uncle Robert, I said, picking up a folder. His company just lost the Madison Avenue project to us. He doesn't know yet. The next few days brought more family revelations. Cousin Michael discovered that his event company's newest and most profitable client was actually a Harrison Properties subsidiary. Emma learned that her country club membership came through my ownership of the property, and Uncle Robert finally realized that his summer cottage was among the properties I'd acquired for the resort development. The family dynamics were shifting rapidly. The same relatives who had dismissed my business acumen were now desperately trying to schedule meetings to discuss opportunities. The cousins who had sneered at my empty lake house were suddenly interested in employment opportunities. I handled it all with the same careful precision I'd used to build my empire. Each request was met with professional courtesy and clear boundaries. Yes, Amanda could have the Grand Plaza for her wedding, at the family rate, which was still substantial. No, I wouldn't be hiring cousins into executive positions. And absolutely not, I wouldn't be selling any properties to the family trust at special prices. A week after the revelation, I sat in my penthouse office, reviewing the latest press coverage. Harrison Properties revolutionizes luxury development, read one headline. Secret billionaire's lake resort transforms market, declared another. My phone buzzed, a message from Amanda. James, the Grand Plaza is amazing, but Mom's worried about the deposit. She mentioned you might waive it for family. I typed back, standard contracts apply to everyone. Your wedding planner has the details. Another message, this time from Uncle Robert. James, my boy, heard about the Madison Avenue deal. Perhaps we could discuss over dinner. Your aunt's cooking your favorite. Delete. The family was learning, slowly but surely, that their assumptions about me had been wrong all along. The struggling cousin they'd tried to help was now the one they turned to for help. The property they'd tried to claim was becoming a landmark development. My secretary buzzed again. Your father's here. I looked out at the city skyline. My skyline, in many ways, and thought about the past 5 years. The quiet accumulation of power. The careful maintenance of my struggling image. The satisfaction of today's revelation. Send him in, I said. It was time for another conversation about family business and the price of underestimating the wrong person. My father entered, looking both proud and uncomfortable. Before he could speak, I gestured to the chair across from my desk. Dad, I said, opening my laptop, let's talk about what happens next. 3 months after the Lakehouse revelation, I stood at the window of my penthouse office, watching the construction crews break ground on the Harrison Lake Resort. The family dynamic had shifted permanently, settling into what I called the new normal. Amanda's wedding was yesterday. At the Grand Plaza, of course. She'd finally accepted the standard contract and deposit requirements, after 3 attempts to negotiate family rates. The event was splashed across social media as the wedding of the year, though not for the reasons she'd originally planned. Instead of a lake house ceremony, she'd gotten a luxury celebration that most people could only dream of. My phone buzzed. Uncle Robert again. James, devastating news about the Riverside project. Our investors pulled out after losing the Madison bid to your company. Perhaps we could discuss a potential partnership. Family helping family. I archived the message without responding. His company's building lease was up for review next month, and I had other plans for that prime real estate. The family had gradually sorted themselves into three categories: the adapters, the deniers, and the opportunists. The adapters, led by my mother, had accepted the new reality with grace. They'd apologized for their past assumptions and were working to build genuine relationships. Mom had even started volunteering at the Harrison Foundation's Community Development Program, proving she could add value without expecting special treatment. The deniers, like Aunt Mary, still couldn't quite process the change. They continued acting as if my success was temporary or exaggerated, making comments like, "It's nice that James is doing well with his little company at family gatherings." I let them live in their comfortable denial. Then there were the opportunists: Uncle Robert, Emma, and most of my cousins. They'd shifted from dismissing me to bombarding me with business proposals, partnership offers, and job applications. Each one was convinced that their family connection entitled them to a piece of my success. My secretary buzzed. "Your sister Emma is here. She doesn't have an appointment. Send her away," I replied. "Direct her to HR if she has business proposals." The Harrison Lake Resort project had become a symbol of this transformation. Where they once saw an empty lake house, there was now a rising luxury complex that made international headlines. The relatives who had planned to commandeer my property were now applying for memberships to the exclusive club they couldn't afford. A knock at my door. "Marcus with the latest development reports. Singapore investors doubled their commitment," he said, "and the family's summer cottages are cleared for Phase 2 development." I nodded, thinking of the upcoming family reunion. Has anyone told them yet? Notices go out next week. Legals prepared for the usual complaints about family properties rights. The family properties argument had become a running joke among my executive team. The same relatives who had dismissed my business acumen now claimed deep sentimental attachments to properties they'd barely visited. My phone buzzed again. A message from my father. "Son, your mother and I are proud of you. We were wrong and we're sorry. Sunday dinner at your place this week. Just family, no business talk." This message I answered. 7 p.m. Bring wine. The past 3 months had taught my family several valuable lessons. First, success doesn't always wear the face they expect. Second, family connections don't guarantee business advantages. And third, never underestimate the quiet one in the room. As I looked out over the city skyline, I thought about the lake house that started it all. In trying to claim my empty property, my family had inadvertently revealed their own empty assumptions. Their presumption had forced my hand, but perhaps that was for the best. My phone buzzed one final time. "Amanda, the wedding was perfect. Thank you for everything, James. I'm sorry we tried to take over your lake house. Looking back, it was pretty awful of us." I smiled and typed back, "Congratulations.
Oh.
Consider it a lesson learned." And that was the real victory. Not the resort, not the revealed success, but the realization that respect isn't inherited, it's earned. My family had learned that lesson the hard way. As the sun set over my city, I thought about the next family gathering. There would be no more pitying looks, no more dismissive advice, no more assumptions about my capabilities. Instead, there would be a new understanding that success comes in many forms, and sometimes the best revenge is simply proving them wrong. The Harrison Lake Resort would open next year, transforming the property they thought was wasting away into something extraordinary. But the real transformation had already happened. In the shift of power, the rewriting of relationships, and the sweet satisfaction of showing my family exactly who I'd become, while they were too busy underestimating me to notice. Sir Marcus appeared at the door. "Tokyo's calling about the hotel chain acquisition." I turned from the window, straightening my tie. "Tell them I'm ready." The quiet one in the room, it turns out, had the loudest success story of all. The end.